Hello, welcome back to By the Rules. And today I'm going to be talking about boundaries. It's something that I think we could get into more details of. It's a very nuanced topic, and I'm going to sort of address a few things that don't come to mind when we actually talk about boundaries. And before I get into the conversation, what I want to do is that I really want to say a big thank you to each one of you who's here right now listening to this. But I really appreciate you. And with that, I'll just get into what I want to speak about today. Just for context, I've always been somebody with a very firm set of boundaries. And of course, today we have the vocabulary for it where we know what boundaries are and all of that. But even as a kid, what that looked like was, being me being very vocal about what I like, what I don't like, even to my parents. And I didn't really, you know, it sounds very nonchalant, but I really didn't care about what people were going to think about what makes me happy, and somehow that has always sort of acted in my favor, which is why I think I have sort of dodged a lot of situations in life that could have been really challenging otherwise. Although by nature I've been somebody like that who's been very comfortable telling people what I'm uncomfortable with and what I want in relationships, and what I want, how I want to be treated and all of that. I think all of us falter from time to time, and we all have moments where we're not our strongest. And so in a synopsis, that is why I'm talking about this today. And it was actually an incident that happened yesterday where I was in a business meeting, but it was also sort of a personal relationship that I had with the clients. We've worked in the past on many projects. As you grow and evolve, the way you behave, the way you interact with people, everything evolves. And I feel I'm at that stage in life where I'm very certain about how I want to do things, how I want my partnerships to look like, what kind of dynamic that I want to bring into my life, be it personal, professional, and yes, I think that is a very strong boundary that I've been able to identify in my professional life also, which has sort of led me to do business in a way in a very structured, in a very organized fashion, which the whole Southeast Asian region, people are not used to working like that yet, which is unfortunate because I think we're really losing out on a lot of talent just because we are not, ready to sort of evolve. We're not ready to move on from uh, age-old ways of doing work, which honestly causes a lot of headache. And the simplest terms, what I mean to say is that like things like invoices, things like contracts and stuff. And since I've been freelancing for, I don't know, maybe the past 10 years, uh, this was the first time when I introduced a contract, and I said that okay, there's a contract and I'm legally protected, and this is how I want to do business, and there's a 50% upfront advance before I even begin the project, before I even get on a call that is officially around work. And that is me setting a standard for myself. What happens then is that like there's going to be a lot of people who are not going to be comfortable with it because they're used to you being a certain way. They used to, yeah, okay, fine, we'll take care of it kind of an attitude, and somehow that doesn't work for me anymore. And as I'm evolving, not just personally but also professionally, for me it's important to like have partnerships where I feel like where I'm going is aligned with the interests of the people that I collaborate with, my stakeholders, and all of that. So when I introduce this system, so what has also happened is that it automatically filters away people who are not aligned with you on that. And as like as unfortunate it is, it could be your biggest client, it could be people you've worked with for many years, but it does not matter to me because I stood firm that okay, if we're doing this together, this is how we're doing it. I'm very happy to find a solution that works well for you, but like these are very small things in terms of systems, in terms of structures, in terms of payments, in terms of how I want to be spoken to, in terms of how we interact. And I don't think in any kind of working or personal relationship that should be something that's negotiable or up for even discussion. Because what I'm essentially trying to say here is that I am telling somebody how I want to be treated, how I feel valued and respected, and everything around that, like in terms of deliveries, timelines, work, and all of that is something we, like, you can still be very flexible with. You can be, those are the things that should be open for discussion and not the basics. For me, the way you treat each other is basic. The way you show respect is basic. So moving on from that, I just wanted to use that as an example of how even setting boundaries is very difficult, because not everybody is going to understand it. I think what triggered me in this whole situation was that while I was coming from the point of view to protect myself, to protect my mental peace, and to do business in a way that, is sustainable for me, how that was perceived was me being very rigid, me being very sort of adamant about the things I want. And that just led me to think that, but bro, at no point did I tell you that, you won't get your deliverables at the promised deadlines. At no point did I tell you that I don't want to work with you, because I do value our relationship. And I kept explaining this very calmly to the other person, and they were just not ready to sort of hear, like, you can listen, but you're not hearing what I'm saying. And for me, that was a very, I would say it was saddening, because I'm just trying to communicate my needs to somebody who I thought valued me and respected me, but that's not happening. And when that happened, it sort of, made me realize that in the past, I too have been an ass to people. I too have been an ass in my personal, professional relationships, where I was only thinking about the things that I want. And when I was not really listening, not really understanding what the other person is trying to say to me about their needs. And I digress a little bit, but huge apologies to anybody who's listening to this. And, at any point, if I have violated your boundaries and, not understood what you're trying to communicate with me. And yes, it's only these situations when you realize that, okay, how deep a certain problem can get if you don't sort of bring it to the table and want to solve it, which is why I wanted to talk about setting boundaries. Like, although there's a lot of conversation around, oh yeah, set boundaries and all of that, nobody really tells you how exhausting it can get. Because imagine sort of moving in a direction and everybody tries to tell you that they know better for you. And that sucks. Like, honestly, there's no better way to put it. It honestly sucks, because you know what's best for yourself, and the boundaries that you put for yourself are in your best interest. They're always in your best interest, because it's not for anybody else to understand. You're not doing it so that somebody else gets you. You're doing it so that you are peaceful, you love yourself, you don't end up exhausting yourself. And so yeah, like, while this whole process is very exhausting, what happens is that slowly you get into the habit of, having very firm set of rules in the way you lead your life, in the way you do things, and that automatically becomes second nature. Like, it I'll be very honest, it didn't take me a second to make a decision around, okay, yes, I was losing business, but I was like, I don't want to do business with somebody who cannot understand what I'm trying to say, with somebody who's coming from a place of ego. And it was unfortunate, because what I was trying to do is that I really want to work a solution out, so that we can have a long term partnership, so that, like, moving forward in the future, how this would work. And this has got nothing to do with how we work. This is just putting in some systems in place. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that what happens when you do not set these boundaries is that you allow people to take you for a ride. And I'm not saying that they do it with the intention of hurting you, or with the intention of sort of sorry, I'm sweating, it's kind of getting, oopsie. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that it's not necessarily the case that the people who you are trying to set firm boundaries with, do not have your best interest in mind. Because trust me, what happens most of the time is that with the rest of the world, it's fairly easy, okay? But it's with very close people who you really care about, people like your closest friends, your partner, your family. It's those people where you struggle to, sort of place and implement and stick through your boundaries. So with that, what I've learned is that there's usually, like, 3 to 5 reasons that I identified in my case, a lot of which I had to slowly get over to be at a place where I'm like, you know what, fuck it, I'm not gonna trade anything for my mental peace. I'm not gonna trade anything for what makes me happy. Earlier, I think what was happening and what was sort of stopping me from saying exactly this to myself was that it was coming from places like, the fear of not being liked or some sort of guilt factor. And yeah, in the very simplest terms, it was self-esteem issues, and it was lack of, I would say, self worth, that I didn't understand, or I didn't believe that I was capable of saying that, okay, no, we put a stop to this right now, and this is how I want to do it if we want to do it. Because at no point am I saying that I don't want to. But then, it cannot be a one way effort. It cannot be me bending over every single time. I'm not going to be a pushover for, any longer. Have done it, gave me a lot of grief, and so I want to change the way I do things. I want to change the way I am in all my relationships. And yeah, once I was able to sort of identify that, and huge thanks to my lovely therapist also for that, a lot of self work has gone into it. I slowly started to realize that, it's not really that hard, because essentially, whenever you're setting a boundary, you're simply saying no. You're saying no to things. You're saying no to things that are not of your interest. You're saying no to activities that don't please you. You're saying no to things you don't want to do, things you don't enjoy. So when I diluted it down to simply that, I was like, okay, that's not that difficult, like I can say no. I have been saying no to a lot of things ever since I was a kid. So, and I know how to say no, like it's not something new that you have to learn. So yeah, I got a hang of that, and then came the other challenge that while I was doing this, like in the incident that I mentioned, whatever I was trying to do was perceived as being rigid, was perceived as being difficult. And I was like, why the fuck are these words being associated to what I'm saying? It made me very sad, because it just sort of reaffirmed all these things that we read on social media, all of these sort of campaigns that we see around the rights of women. And it just made me wonder that, I didn't say anything that was outrageous. I just wanted to introduce a legal contract that helps me get paid the way I want to get paid. And if that does not suit you, there is no problem. We can mutually agree to not do business together. It's literally that simple. In fact, that makes everybody's life easy. That if my terms don't suit you, please, I wish you all the best, and you should find somebody who you align with better. But when that was sort of, like I was being gaslit, and I was being told that, like, I'm being difficult and I'm not ready to meet them midway and all of that. It was really disheartening, because that I didn't come from that kind of a mindset. I didn't come from that kind of, like outlook at the whole situation. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too much into that conversation, because it's a huge ass conversation in itself. But it is a thing that, like I was being manipulated, I was being coerced into doing things that I didn't want to do. And and that's actually why, like I decided to talk about this, because it's important. Like I don't think anybody would have dared to treat a man like that. you know it's just unfortunate, but I don't think that would have been the case, which is why it was even more important for me, especially with like all these conversations happening around how women are treated at workplaces. I'm like, okay, I don't need that kind of energy in my life. And I'm going to talk about it because it's important for me, because I don't want anybody who's, young, aspiring, have found themselves in situations like this. You're not doing anything wrong. By saying things that you want, that you need, you're not doing anything wrong. So, on the contrary, if somebody shows you that they're not able to respect you, you leave. It's as simple as that. And like I mentioned earlier in this conversation, those things around, rejection, the fear of not being liked, of being or sounding unpleasant, of having that unnecessary guilt, it's going to be there, especially if you're new to the whole idea of setting boundaries and having more control over the things you say yes to. It's going to be very challenging. So what I have to sort of give as a tip to anybody who's listening is that before you set boundaries with others, start setting boundaries with your own self. Because once you get into that habit of, being so committed to the things that you want, that you're able to train yourself to, behave exactly how you would want to behave, that is the thing that makes it easier to sort of implement that with others, because you've already done that for yourself. And setting boundaries yourself looks like, physical boundaries. It could look like health boundaries. Like, just to give you an example, if you've decided you won't have junk, then that's a firm boundary. If you're setting boundaries that, okay, you will not tolerate a certain kind of behavior, you yourself retract yourself from situations because your boundaries are so firm that you will not be exposed to the people who, sort of have the capacity to disturb your state of mind. As kids, we are never taught to set boundaries. We're never taught to sort of speak to elders in a way that is contradictory to what they believe, what they say, and that has been carrying on for many years. That becomes a part of you. So to sort of untrain yourself, you have to do that, relearning with your own self. Before I end this topic, I have to make this point that, especially for young professionals, if you're made to feel that you're demanding too much or you're too aggressive and all of that, take that in your stride, because what that says about you is that you know your worth. Okay, and by that I don't mean be an asshole, don't be rude to people, be respectful. Don't try to show somebody up. Don't do all of that. I find that extremely unnecessary. It's not good for our personal growth. It's not, you're going to get nothing out of making somebody else feel bad. So stay focused. If you think you're doing everything right and still you're not being valued at a table, just get up and leave. I literally, like, I'm speaking about this so passionately because just yesterday something happened and I was like, you know what, I'm going to make this into art. I'm very happy I could do that. I'm very happy that you're listening to this, that you've listened to this all the way through. I would love to interact with anybody who wants to, go deeper into this topic, because, of course, in like 10-15 minutes, there's hardly so much that we can cover, but this is a very nuanced topic. So, yes, I would definitely love to hear your thoughts, and thank you so much for being here. And I wish you a lovely day.